Coming, introduce myself and Haley, my daughter, father and daughter team. My name is Rami Miransky, Haley Miransky. I've been a financial planner for close to 25 years. Haley is a lawyer and also been in financial planning as well.
No longer practicing.
And so we come with a lot of expertise. I guess I started to become a bit of an expert in the HST about 2012. Two of my clients built new homes. I knew about the rebate, helped them get the rebate, and when I was starting to talk to their contractors and trades and architects, etc., I found very few people knew about it. It was fairly new at the time because it's only been around since 2010. HST was initiated July 1st, 2010. You have anything you want to say about yourself for the introduction? No? So HST was initiated in both BC and Ontario July 1st, 2010. And as a result of the HST coming, the developers of the province said, well, this is not good. Because all of a sudden new housing, which is going to be subject to HST, is now going to increase by 8%, because previously it was only GST. So from one day to the next, a $5.5 million condo, house, whatever it was, went up $40,000. The developers felt this is going to harm the trade, construction, and knowing it was coming, they lobbied with the government, and the government instituted this rebate. And the rebates, there are two portions of the rebate. There is the federal portion, which is the GST portion, and that is a maximum of $6,300, 36% of the GST to a maximum of $6,300. Can anyone tell me, and it's there on the sheet, where the GST, the federal portion, oh, you don't have a pen up, where the federal portion is not applicable anymore? The federal rebate, and what value of housing does the federal rebate cease to exist?
$450.
$450, very good. The provincial rebates, however, is the larger of the two. It can be a maximum of $24,000, and that represents 75% of the provincial sales tax to a maximum of $24,000. Is there any cap to the value of a residence with respect to the provincial rebate? I'm seeing no shake their heads, no.
No fun there.
Sure, you can do it. I've done it for people who built $8–10 million homes. They got their money back. They got, well, not all their money
The
back.
provincial portion.
The provincial portion, not the federal portion.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the federal
The
portion
federal
is
portion
capped.
capped out at $450. Yes.
Okay, so even though the value is not capped to get the rebate is
And
capped.
let me show you. So, I'm sorry.
Is it a sliding scale for the provincial one?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so the-
450 means 450,000?
Yes.
Sorry, I was
Nothing
just,
available for that.
So you get the
That's what I
federal
see.
rebate on the first 450 and nothing.
I'll show you how it works.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just mentioning that although there is no cap on the value of the property that can claim the rebate is still capped at the $16,080 or $24,000 if there's land floating on top of that.
Yeah. So the federal rebate works like this: $450. Now let's say the value of the home was $400,000 for the condo, over $100,000, and that equals 50 over 100,000, and that equals 0.5 or 50%. So you would get a maximum of $3,150 on the 6,300 max. 50% of 6,300 is 3,150. So you can see as you're climbing to 450.
Why are you doing 450 minus 400 divided by 100,000?
That's the formula to figure out how much you're eligible for the GST portion, the federal portion.
Okay,
So because 450 is the cap,
right.
what value below 450 is the value of the residence, the new construction?
Which is 400,
I picked 400.
right?
So in this case, 450 less 400 is 50 over 100, which is 0.5 or 50%. And 50% of 63 is 3,150. Yes.
What's the 100,000 for?
That's just the multiple to, yeah. Okay. you'll see at 450 minus 450, it's 0, you're not getting anything. At 451 minus 450 minus 451, you're in the negative territory, you're not getting anything. However, look at
There's also,
450.
there's also a sweet spot. If you
Yeah.
go too low, you haven't paid enough HST, and you're not gonna get the full amount of
over
HST back.
100,000. So the house worth 449, that's 1,000 over 100,000. That's 1%. You're getting 1% of 6,300, which is 63 bucks. Big dollars, okay? And so as you slide up or slide up, so again, the sweet spot comes at, well, to get the maximum federal rebate, 350, so 450 minus 350 is 100,000 over 100,000 equals 1 equals 100%, so you're getting the full rebate. You can't go over, you can't get 120% of the federal rebate if the value is below 350. But when does that happen in the GTA anyway? You know, in small Ontario towns, yes, but not in the GTA.
Hardly even now.
Okay. There is a, very important to know, there is a 2-year limitation period.
Oh,
Oh, I get you.
no, it's fine.
Dry erase marker.
It's just the eraser.
That's yours. So there is a 2-year limitation period to apply for the rebate.
We said 2 years after
From
occupancy.
closing,
Of closing.
closing. Or, well, there's actually 3 rebates, okay? There's 3 rebates. Let's talk about that. And I'll wait for this young fella.
I think we just need to.
Something west, yeah. So there are, okay, perfect, thank you. There are 3 rebates. The first is the rebate for new construction purchased from a builder. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is residential rebate for residential rebate, residential rental property rebate for investors who buy property and decide they're going to lease it. The third one is the rebate for owner-built homes. Okay? So from a builder, rental rebate, owner-built homes. Those are the 3 rebates.
So when,
And for each of them, there is a 2-year limitation period. So the 2-year limitation period for the purchase from a builder, new construction purchase from a builder, or the rental rebate is from the closing date. But,
so owner built is different than builder built?
yes, owner-built is different. Owner-built is a different set of rules, a different application, etc.
So if you're just an owner and you're not a builder for, like, that builds for profit, so let's say I just build a house.
Well,
So
no,
it
it
depends
depends. In this package, there is a definition of what a builder is. A builder does not have to be a contractor. If your intent, and we're jumping ahead of ourselves, but if your intent is to flip a house for commercial activity, even though you're an individual without a contracting company, then you're a builder in the eyes of the CRA. And
If I build a spec house.
if you build a spec house, absolutely.
And don't intend on living there
Yes.
as your primary residence.
Let's not jump ahead, but we'll get to that, we'll repeat
Okay.
that again. So those are the 3 rebates, 2-year limitation period. So again, for the house bought from a builder, a new construction, and again, all new construction is subject to HST. We're talking residential construction subject to HST. Home bought from a builder, 2 years from the closing date to apply. Home residential property rebate, 2 years from closing, but a 1-year lease must be in place. So again, we're jumping ahead. Haley, take the first part of this new housing rebate for homes bought from a builder. This is probably the easiest aspect of this rebate.
Yeah, so
Quick question. Sorry.
to me,
No. Has anyone represented a pre-construction buyer of a condo
Yeah.
or
I'm
subdivision?
just about to, that's
Okay.
why I'm here.
Okay, very good, all right. And as their principal residence?
Yes.
Okay. Easy peasy this one, okay.
so as we all see around Toronto, there are new buildings going up left, right, and center. If you buy these, if you have a client or yourself, anyone, if you're buying these for your personal primary residence, there's not much you have to do. The builder builds the home and they apply on your behalf. You assign the rebate directly back to them. It reduces the purchase price by however much the rebate is
What if you're buying for your son?
for your son. That, so primary, yeah. Immediate family is okay, so parents, brothers, sisters, children, that is all allowed.
So if I'm buying a condo for my son,
Yes.
he's able to get the.
So yeah, the bill, it'll be assigned into the purchase price.
Is
If
it
you,
better to keep it on my name or can I?
Doesn't matter, doesn't matter, immediate family doesn't matter. So if it's in
as long as
your,
he's the owner of the, it can't be, you won't be able to get
I'm not
it,
buying
she's the
yet,
owner.
but I'm just saying.
no, she can get, yeah. Here's the thing,
Uh-huh.
if it's gonna be your son's principal residence, they will ask you before closing who is going to be occupying this. And you'll say, my son, that's immediate family.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about applying for the rebate, because what will happen is you will, in the agreement of purchase and sale, you will
Yeah.
assign it. Then there's some documentation you have to sign that assigns the rebate to the builder. So here's what happens. Where's the black mark? If that, let's assume it's a $500,000 condo just for, okay, including HST, okay? There's about $57,000 included in this price. The max, what is the maximum provincial rebate? Remember what we said? $24,000. So on closing, in the absence of all the other adjustments, land transfers, let's ignore those.
Okay.
You will not have to remit $500,000 to the builder. You will have to give that builder $476,000 because on your closing adjustments, this will appear, a $25,000 credit to the purchaser. Okay? So that's easy. You don't. Your client doesn't have to worry about it. Is it a big project?
No, it's a small condo.
It's a no.
Yeah,
But I mean,
big
is there like
developer.
200 units in this building?
Yeah, it's that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's by one, like a Minto or a Tridel or whoever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. They know about the rebate, they know how to handle it. The government, the federal government doesn't want to receive 200 rebate applications from 200 purchasers of condos. They'd rather get the builder saying, okay, all the units in that $100 million that you sold this building for plus HST, remit to us your input tax credits less what you've given back to the owner.
Two questions.
Yep.
That is done on closing,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And two, if you're an investor who's bought pre-construction, do you apply on your own or does the builder apply for you?
That
Again,
is the
that's the next
topic.
rebate. Okay? And that investor, again, won't get it unless he rents it,
Right.
right? Right.
So it has to be your primary residence to get the rebate back, even if it's from a big developer. You must actually live in the,
For a year?
they say they can, yes, they say if
Oh.
you don't live there a year, they can come back and reclaim it. Kind of goes to intention. If circumstances change and you weren't able to live there for a year, but you planned on living there for a year,
As long as you-
they might be more lenient, yeah.
Okay, so I gave that example. Okay, so your question goes to what can cause problems? Multiple owners can cause problems. Let's say it wasn't your son, it was a nephew or a very good friend, and they needed help with financing. And you decided to protect yourself, to put yourself on the
Or you
agreement
just
of
wanted
purchase
to
and
give them a
sale.
gift.
Or
Yeah.
right? You decided to put
Yeah.
yourself on the agreement purchase sale. Well, if everyone does not qualify for that, so remember, immediate family is the exception. You can do it for your son, but if you do it for a close nephew, then, or a friend or whatever, that will negate the rebate.
If you have a primary residence. If you plan on living there with them and it's both
Yeah.
your primary
Okay, so
residence,
I cannot buy a condo for my nephew.
no.
No.
And
Well,
you
you
get
can,
it.
and get
You
it,
can.
you
I
can.
see.
You can if you're not on title.
I would say you can do it. Help them with the financing. Don't put yourself on the agreement of purchase and
So
sale.
he can buy it and he can
Yes.
apply it and okay.
Well, again, he will get credit for it on
I
closing.
understand.
Okay? And this is where, so here's what Haley said, people listen to us when we talk, but every time I walk away from one of these rebates, seminars, presentations, a few days later somebody calls me, oh, my cousin Joe was at the seminar you gave and he said I might be entitled to a rebate. And I said, okay, can you give me the circumstances? Well, I bought a condo 2 years ago. I said, is your principal residence? He says, yes. I said, well, Joe wasn't listening. Because if you look at your closing adjustments, you've already received credit for that. So please don't send me your clients who bought principal residence 2 years ago. Some cases, sometimes they miss it if it's a smaller builder. I dealt with a smaller builder who put up
Or
townhouses.
specifically,
Well,
my situation
Yeah, but
would have been.
that's a jump ahead.
But
Yeah.
There are
There are
situations that you actually have to go back and look at your closing adjustments and make sure you were given that amount properly, because there
I
are.
didn't know that this is automatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Housing is supposed to be that.
As a principal residence, automatic is unquote. Okay, next step, assignment. Anybody dealt with an assignment? This is a very important issue, and it does happen a lot, particularly in a rising market where people want to cash in on their gains. You know, buyer A goes in, says,
Some properties are taking
you know,
8
I'm buying
years,
it, yeah, it takes
longer
8
than they
years.
say.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, I bought it at 400, it's now worth $600,000, I'm going to sell this thing. Well, what happens? First of all, there's going to be buyer A. So A has bought it from the developer initially, and now they assign it to B, who is now going to have 2 agreements of purchase and sale. One that will reflect the incremental cost, so let's say it was originally, again, 500, and it went up to 650. Okay? So buyer B will owe this buyer 150, and they will owe the developer $500,000. Now is buyer B entitled on this amount? It's going to be their principal residence. Are they entitled to get credit for it on the closing adjustments? Yes or no? No. Are they, no, buyer A is not buying it from the developer. Buyer B is buying it from the developer.
But if buyer B buys it as a primary residence, why not?
Because that's how the rules work. They must apply for it
So
afterwards.
they are entitled to the rebate, it's just not
Oh,
automatic.
okay, all right, so it's not automatic, I'm
It's
closing,
not-
they're gonna get it afterwards.
Exactly.
Okay, but
They
they
must apply,
qualify.
they qualify, but they must
Right,
apply
okay.
for it
As long as
afterwards.
they are the first, as long as it's assigned before anyone has moved in, before it's closed fully, because you have to be the first resident
Right.
in the property to get the.
Got it?
What happens to the 150?
Good question. Is this subject to HST or not subject to HST?
Well, I would imagine, because
Wait, so just
clearly
to
on
be clear,
closing, this unit is now fetching 650.
so buyer A paid $350,
Buyer A,
and then so
Buyer
buyer A did not pay anything. Buyer A before closing,
But the
Buyer A paid a deposit.
oh, it's a deposit, okay. I'm saying, in the absence of deposits.
on their agreement,
Yeah.
purchase and sale, what was the purchase price?
500.
500.
Seller, buyer A.
Buyer A 500, buyer B 650. This is 6 years
Oh,
later.
650.
This is 6 years later. This project's taken a long time. Well, I'm just exaggerating. But normally they take 3, 4,
These are big.
I've seen things take 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay? So now he's paying this individual is paying 650. 500,000 owed to the developer, 150. Again, question is this subject to HST? Yes, no?
Yes.
Again, it depends on, and this is the important thing, it depends on intent, okay? If the intent of buyer A, and for the most part, intent usually doesn't work. If the intent was that they were going to move into this as their principal residence, but because of certain circumstances, and I've given you some examples of those circumstances, they cannot move into it. Marital breakup, financial issues, moving out of the city for a new job,
Having
Child-
twins.
having
I
twins
mean,
and it's not big
yeah,
enough.
yeah.
Very good, I
So
didn't think of
that-
it. Family has grown and it's not big enough
That
anymore.
happened with
Yeah.
a friend of mine. They bought in the building at Bathurst and St. Clair, and I think that building took 7 years. She bought it with a different boyfriend. She's now married with a child. It just closed this year, so her circumstances definitely changed, and she bought a house since. She had a kid. She got married to someone else, and so she was allowed to use intent as a reason, but.
Right, but you have to, yes,
So who verifies that intent?
the CRA, they know what's going
Is that
on.
an audit or just
They will ask questions. Listen, when buildings close, the CRA asks the developers, give us all the names of all the purchasers.
Right.
And let us know what all these agreements of sale are. And they will check, they will do their due diligence and check. to see. And then you better be able to prove it, and people say, oh, that's easy, I'll prove my intent changed.
Right.
Well, you better listen, if you change jobs, that's easy. If you got divorced, that's easy. If your family grew, that's easy. But if your circumstances sort of remain the same, you're gonna have to prove that your intent was not to flip it and make a profit.
Right.
You might cover this later, so I'm sorry, but if the intent was to never live in there, you cannot claim a rebate. Is that true?
Well, first of all, it's not this person claiming the rebate. It's this person who's, only the owner of, the eventual owner of the property can claim the rebate. A will never be the owner of that property, they signed it, so don't worry about the rebate for A, okay?
Right.
B gets it, but the difference between circumstance A, when A bought it as a principal residence and got credit for it,
Right.
B will not get credit for it, they must apply for it afterwards,
Interesting.
okay? That's the difference. But here's the
But
other
still,
difference.
what's happening with the 150?
What's happening with the 150?
Yeah.
Again, if the intent was to move in by A, then it is HST exempt. That 150 is HST exempt. If the intent was to flip it to make a profit, they must pay the HST.
Like A pays the HST.
B pays the HST.
It depends on the,
Purchaser.
it depends on the wording.
Okay, I don't
of
understand. Why does B has to pay
It's new.
A's intent?
Because if A was like an investor, for example, and they never wanted to live in it, and then they assigned it to B, that's not HST exempt.
Now, A was buying the condo and he was planning on moving in and living it.
Oh, then B doesn't have to pay.
Then he decided to sell.
Here's the most important point. HST is applicable on all new residential houses.
Because it's new.
Okay? And because the final owner of this is not A, but is B. B is paying $650,000 for a new residential unit that was never intended to be A's principal residence, and so the entire amount is HST applicable.
But you just said that if he did intend to live in it, that he's not.
Yeah.
And it's
That's what I'm
exempt,
Yeah,
and it's
that's what I'm
exempt.
saying.
If A intended to move into it, and because of circumstantial changes,
Yeah.
she was forced not, couldn't close. Financial reasons, growth of family, moving out of the city, whatever, then but they're gonna be able to have to prove it, okay?
So B better make sure that he knows the circumstances of A.
Well,
Did
exactly.
you guys cover that?
And not that
Yes, now flip the page. What is the most common clause that you see relating to HST? If you flip the page under the third page, have you ever seen that clause?
Which one?
It's the general HS, number
Yeah.
7, the
Now
general
we're
HST.
Yeah, we
So
have
that's
that in
an
all
agreement.
our agreements.
All the agreements.
Yeah.
So when A sells to B, if that's in the agreement, B is sort of off the hook and A could be in big trouble,
Right.
right? Because then that $150,000 includes HST. And look at, and has anybody, who here has the longest experience? Who's been in the business?
I probably.
Yeah,
Okay,
you probably have.
okay. Have you ever seen, so read that, if the sale of the property is not subject to HST, seller agrees to certify on or before closing that the property is not subject to HST. Okay, we don't have to read about the chattels.
Right.
So when have you ever seen a
Certificate.
seller verify that this house is not subject
Never.
to HST? Never. It's assumed
The assumption,
on resale properties.
well, I was going to say though, that in the day,
Mhm.
the builder used to build it into his price or her price, so and that seems to be a non-thing now.
Yeah.
That
But
doesn't-
now
So
we're
this
talking
is
about a
built
more
in,
complicated issue. This is assignment.
Oh, that's
So
a sign.
This
Yeah,
is,
that's-
this is A, really has to certify to B that this is not subject to HST. I've never spoken to a real estate agent who's worked on an assignment issue, and they hate the paperwork, and every real estate agent I've ever spoken to said, I hate assignments.
I don't understand this.
Okay? That A has ever certified to B that the property was HST exempt. For, I would say 90–95% of the time on assignment, it is not HST exempt. And I'll have real estate agents ask me, how come CRA is now coming after my client for HST on the assigned closing? I said, because he owes HST on this amount. It was never his intent to move into it as his principal residence, and CRA's found that out. So now he's gonna owe the embedded HST within this $150,000.
But only on this difference in price, he's gonna be.
On the $150,000, because the only thing that buyer A is getting is this additional $150,000. B is taking care of the $500,000 and giving A the extra $150,000. So the embedded HST in $150,000 is, and I always forget the number, is 26 less 7.5. It's about $18,000. I think 17,000. So they may end up owing the government about $18,000. Not fun, right? And also will have to pay capital gains. That's a whole other issue that their tax accountant has to take care of, capital gains issue on that. And if they've done it multiple times, it may not be capital gains. If they catch those people flipping and flipping, now they're engaged in commercial activities, it's income. It's income, right? You know, if you get some investors who buy 3 or 4 units in a building and they flip them, well, it's not capital gain, capital gain, capital gain, capital gain. It's income, 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 and they're going to have a big tax bill to pay. Okay? Next, back to that previous.
Yeah, so, or still just to
Okay.
make note of clause 7, depending on who you are representing, this clause is very important.
Yes.
Based on this example, it doesn't necessarily have to be an assignment, but if you're representing the buyer or the seller, you have to be really careful on which one you include. As a real estate agent representing a buyer B,
that's a good clause.
you always want to say it's included in. You know, once it closes, you paid everything there is to pay. There's not going to be a surprise HST amount suddenly coming to you. But if you're the seller and you say included in, and there is HST included, then you might be on the hook for extra HST owing.
So this should really be in the builder we should make sure that this is in the builder contract, because these contracts we don't draft.
If you're representing
But this
B,
line
they're always in the
One of you
builder.
guys is.
Yeah, they're always in the individual. They're always in the contracts. If you look at a standard contract, clause 7, usually on the second page near the bottom, that's what you'll see.
No, I understand in the resale ones, but in the builder
The
contract.
builder ones, no, it's also there.
It's
It's also there. Yeah. I mean, older ones I've seen that it's in addition to, but the newer ones I say it's included in. Okay? So again, if you're representing A, you want to make sure that A. How do you protect A? Well, if you flip to the next page, is a different clause how you might protect A. Yeah.
This second
Yeah,
paragraph.
that's all.
Right.
I recently saw a new construction that was fully furnished, but it was like luxury, and they were claiming about $100,000 worth of furnishings. Is that,
Those are the channels.
yeah,
Yeah.
do you have to pay HST on that as well?
Yeah.
And if you
Possibly.
say included in though, would that negate that?
It depends. You know what? It depends. Is it brand new?
Yeah.
That one I'm not an expert on, so I will defer on that one and consult some experts on that and get back to you on that one. Okay? So on the next page is a clause you might want to include if you're representing A. How to protect A. That it is not included in. That it is, in addition to. Okay, so move on to the next subject from the first page. Let's give you an example. It's on the first page. Buyer, a contractor specs a home, takes it down, leaves the foundation, leaves 2 existing walls, rebuilds it. It's not a tear-down home. It's not protected by any warranties.
So does a tear-down home, does it make a tear-down home when there's nothing of the existing home?
Exactly.
So foundation up,
Yes,
basically.
yes. This one won't be a tear-down home, but they've bought a house and whatever. I mean, there's in the junction. It's an older home, it's 50, 60 years old, needs some work. Maybe it's a bungalow. They take it down 2 walls, they build it up, and they sell it. And they're now selling it from their corporation to an individual who's going to buy it as a principal resident. Subject to HST or HST exempt?
Does it depend on
Exempt, I think.
occupancy? Like, are you able to live in it? while it's being,
Well, the scenario is the builder is building it and they're selling it from their corporation to the
No,
individual.
HST.
No, that's incorrect.
HST.
It is HST. Here's the definition. The definition of the federal government as to what constitutes new housing is different than the provincial government. Okay? Provincial government says a new home is a tear-down home. Federal government says a new home is either a new build or a substantially renovated home, 90%. So 90%, yes, you leave the foundation and you leave 2 walls and you build everything else. From the federal government's point of view, that is new construction and it is subject to HST.
Even
So substantial new build about 90%.
substantial renovation, even more than leaving up just 2 walls, if you leave the entire exterior of the home, like you often see, just take out the windows, but gut the entire interior, that's still 90%. So it can be the entire frame of the house.
So that's why they leave, I guess they leave the frame then, just because. I thought
Cost.
They
had
leave it
frame.
because they don't understand.
Yeah, exactly, that's what I hear. Oh, they like
Building
it
permits are sometimes
because
easier,
we
you
don't
leave.
pay HST when
We'll
it's not a
give,
new
it's
build.
not the truth, we'll give, Haley, we'll give her, it's not an anecdote, it's a true story.
But there are also, sorry, there are building permit issues if you do leave something. It's a different,
Yeah,
it's
it's
a different
setback
building
issues, it's
permit.
bylaw
Setback.
issues.
That's what I always
Yeah.
explain. The
Has
reason
nothing to-
is a setback, because
Exactly.
now the new laws does not allow you to come as close to your neighbors as it was before. And they, oh, I see, okay.
But the
Right.
problem
But I
is
never
the
touched
builders
it.
have been doing it for years and
Yeah.
they misunderstand it, they
Yeah.
don't understand it.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, and we touched on this earlier when at Sketch,
Okay.
they are trying to circumvent, even if they do understand, they're trying to circumvent the system. They're trying to resell it as a resale,
Oh, you said.
which alleviates the HST
Yeah.
and alleviates them of taxation, right? But we'll let Haley will tell our story about.
But one more
Yeah, go
thing, you
for it.
said if federal government says
Yes.
it's a new bill, you
Yes.
have to pay HST. How about provincial, what do they say about?
Provincial doesn't
Doesn't
control the
regulate.
taxes,
Aha.
so who cares? Well, the builder might care, but go ahead with the story.
It's actually the same friend that had the condo that took 7 years to build. When she got married and had a new baby, decided to look in the housing market and buy a house. She found a house she really liked. It was almost a new build. All 4 walls were left standing. A real estate agent who also worked as a developer builder, not by his original trade, he was a real estate agent, decided to go in, got the interior, and put it up for resale from his corporation to whoever decided to purchase it. So my friend Molly and her husband John purchased the house. She was in there during the process. She saw what was going on inside. They took down all the walls to the studs, just the exterior walls left standing. She could pick the finishes, she could pick the flooring, she picked all the vanities, everything she picked out. So on closing, we approached her and asked her if she knew that she was entitled to the HST new housing rebate. And
Well, it was a fair bit after.
yeah, I had asked her
Oh, did you? Oh,
originally,
okay.
and she said no. And then once I became more involved, I realized, or talked to you, and realized that she probably was also entitled to it, and she didn't realize. So we looked at her plans, we saw the amount of work that was done, we saw it was coming from a corporation, we saw no one had lived there before, she was the first resident.
And it was sold from a corporation, so
Sold from-
the corporation could not have been the principal residence.
Yeah.
Corporations do not own principal.
And when you buy from a corporation as opposed to an individual, you're paying tax on land.
Yes.
So she was entitled to
That's
$24,000 instead of $16,000 that she had no idea she was entitled to because she didn't realize it was a new home. The builder also didn't realize it was a new home. We tried to reach him a couple times to explain what was happening. She had told me that he does it a bunch around the city, so there are other properties he's likely doing very similar things with. Tried to give him an opportunity to maybe settle with her on the side.
Well, it does say, no, it doesn't have to be on the side.
Yeah.
It
Or
does
yeah,
say,
or
it does
just-
say
yeah.
on the application that it does say, has the builder either given you a credit for it on the closing adjustments or given it to you as a cash payment, right?
Okay, so the problem came that the builder
Didn't think it was new.
It wasn't a problem for Molly and John, it was a problem for the builder.
For the builder, so the builder was supposed to pay HST to government because he sold a new home to
Right.
someone.
And he
And
didn't
he wanted
realize,
to avoid that.
he didn't realize maybe that it was new
But-
because,
Oh, wait,
He-
the HST was assumed paid, because when we
Exactly.
looked at the agreement of purchase and sale, that clause said HST, unless exempt, HST is assumed included in the price.
Yeah.
He screwed himself.
Also, he's not faced with the tax bill and she's getting the rebate?
Yes, he's selling new residential property without HST. He's
Yes,
trying
he
to see, and he knew what he was doing.
Of course,
I
otherwise.
phoned him, I had a discussion with him, I told him. He said, I'll get back to you. 2 days later, I wait, 3 days later, I wait, doesn't get back to me. I phone him again, leave him a message. He does not call me. I think he just does not want to, he wants to
Why
bury
he
his
knows?
head.
He knows because if he's dealing as corporation, he knows.
In any case, the application went in, Molly and John got their $24,000, they were exceedingly happy, and I can only assume what happened to the builder now. The CRA will have,
They
if
will
they haven't
go up.
contacted him already, he owes them on, it was about $1 million,
Just
right?
under
Just
$1
over, or just under $1 million.
$1.80.
He owes them the embedded, about $114,000 of
So
HST.
if one of our clients buys a house and it's completely renovated, he's entitled for a rebate. So it's a good idea to ask whoever built this home, the seller. if
Well,
he's-
here's the thing.
Okay, what can we do?
Option two, no, yeah, you can ask. I mean, if it's from a corporation, then you'll know that's not their principal residence.
Okay.
If it's from a homeowner, well, let's say the homeowner, let's say, okay, same example. An individual, you, Katja, you, I'm sorry, your name, James,
Peter.
Peter,
No,
Lauren, and fine,
no.
Carmel. Any one of you decides, I'm gonna spec this house, takes it down to the foundation and 2 walls, build it, all new finishings, and decide, I'm gonna sell this. And you're selling it in your name to another homeowner. Is it HST exempt or HST applicable?
Well, it's a new home, right?
That's the point, it's a new home. If your intent was to move into it and circumstances change, it's HST exempt. If your intent was to flip it and make a profit, it is HST, not HST.
That's why so many builders build
And
and
live in it for the year.
and then you get a half a year.
Exactly, that's fine, you know,
Yeah.
that's fine. If you do it too many times, however,
then
they'll catch
cut
up
off,
to you.
right.
You do it every year for 5 years, they'll say, no, your intent is not, it's a business. right?
So I have a situation where we didn't go to offer, but we might still. So the listing is in a person's name. And all the marketing material are in a company name. So blah blah builder, I forgot what his name, blah blah builder built this home and you know, you can read up on his website and the pictures are there and whatever. So would you suggest that he is trying to sell it as a primary residence?
Yes, here's the thing. The individual whose name it's under probably has another primary residence.
Well, they're clearly not living there because the thing's vacant.
Oh, it's vacant.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen them, I've seen for sale signs, and there's still, the building permit is still in the window.
Right.
And so the first occupant of that home is going to be the purchaser of that home,
Right.
not the individual who's listed on the agreement of purchase and sale, who's the vendor.
Right.
So probably,
So in order to protect my clients, as long as I have a clause that says HST is included in, I'm good.
not only are you protecting your client, you're possibly making them eligible for a $24,000 rebate. Well, even if it doesn't say H included in, even say it's addition to, if it says addition to, they're paying HST, and then they're definitely eligible for the rebate. However, it becomes a little more complex if there's an individual there, because you'd have to prove that that individual never intended to move into that home. But if your client is the first occupant of their home, you know it's the first occupant, it's brand sparking new, there's, you know, there's some stage.
No, it's brand spanking news.
Yeah.
Actually, they bought a building, bungalow subdivided a lot and put two new homes up. So there's nothing that isn't new because there was one there, now there's two.
Right.
So everything's new.
The only thing you can do is possibly try and, your clients may, and have they purchased it already?
No,
Okay.
we might,
Okay.
but we're in the process.
Once,
of
if they do purchase it, they may be eligible for the rebate if you can somehow prove that the a vendor on the agreement purchase sale has another principal residence somewhere. I'm doing this for somebody right now who moved in, he's an accountant. He said he bought from a builder, but he said this builder's building 3 or 4 houses in the area, and the house is in his wife's name. I said, well, more than likely, I said, do you know where he lives? He said, yeah, because he's come over to repair things and he doesn't live too far away, and they live in a house maybe a quarter mile away, a half kilometer away, and that's his principal residence. I said, well, you can't have, first of all, you can't build 4 houses and all claim that they're your principal residence, because you can only have one. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, a married couple was allowed 2 principal residences. That got, eliminated in the early 80s, only 1 principal residence for matrimonial home, principal residence. But yeah, that's possible.
So the wife's name wouldn't matter if they're married. They
I'm just
legally-
wondering
yeah.
why.
Why?
Yeah.
It's easy to explain why.
They
The
think
builders are
maybe-
trying to circumvent the tax system. Sell it as a resale property, which is not only exempt from HST, but is exempt from income tax.
The interesting thing is too, so this particular home has been listed 3 times. On the very first listing, it says offer on a builder contract. On the subsequent 2 listings, it no longer says that.
Right. They probably got wise, and maybe someone has moved. Oh, well, no, you
There's
said
nobody
nobody
there.
there.
There's nobody there.
Yeah.
So this is for us,
That's actually like the one on near my house. The first time it was sold through the builder, and the second time it's just real estate. You know, the one in the corner,
Yeah.
so
Similar
when we
situation
are
that I
buying,
saw.
when we are buying a house, new house for a client, so we are trying to get this HST for him, a rebate. But at the same time, we are trying to hurt the seller if he's trying to avoid this, right?
Well, you may be hurt. You're not trying to.
Not hurting, but.
You're not trying
that's
to,
the
but if,
goal.
yeah, it
Well, you
would in
could,
turn.
you could, but listen, you know what?
Yeah.
It's a dicey
Yeah, I
situation.
understand.
It's a dicey situation that you may end up benefiting your client, but then the
But it's
vendor.
okay for me to say, if, even yesterday, I saw a guy who was doing a complete run of a bungalow, and he says he will be selling it in a couple of weeks. So is it okay for me to say that you know that you will have to pay HST on that?
You can ask
I
him
would,
if he
you
knows.
know what, listen, here's the situation. Let's say you were representing a builder like that. 2-3 weeks ago, we were at Royal LePage Corporate Real Estate Residential Office, and I gave this talk. And then 2 days later, I'm driving, and I live in the Bathurst-Eglinton area, and I'm driving between Dufferin to Bathurst on a street, and I see a for sale sign with a house, brand new, and as I say, the building permits were still in the window. And I looked in, not a stick of furniture, and the for sale sign was of one of the agents that attended the seminar. So I phoned him up and I said, Frank, you're listing on such and such a street. I said, he said, oh yeah, you gave us a talk. I said, Frank, who's selling it? He said, a builder. I said, Frank, what did he do? He said, well, he took down the foundation, a wall left, 2 walls were left to make standing. And then he says to me, without me even asking, and there's no HST. I said, Frank, 2 days ago, we were in your office, and I told you that that type of situation is HST applicable. It's not HST exempt. He goes, oh.
But that's not his issue, right?
No, but
I would not.
it is his issue, and I tell you why. You are one of a few experts that people are relying on to give the right advice. I told Frank, tell your client, have him sign off that you have told him that, and after that, you're covered. But because if it goes wrong, and then the buyer applies for the rebate, and then the CRA comes after the builder and says, oh, you owe us $150,000, who's he going to go after? He's going to go after his accountant, he's going to go after his lawyer, he's going to go after the real estate agent, and he's going to go after the brokerage. Right? You guys did not give me good advice. And Frank said, well, this guy's been doing it for years. I said, Frank, you're armed now with the right information. Protect yourself. Protect yourself. Okay? It doesn't come up that often. If you come up to, I'm not sure,
So
how many times have you represented a builder in this room?
So maybe it's not a good idea to tell the client you are eligible for a rebate, because one gets up in trouble.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you might get the builder in trouble, but the builder's playing a game already, a tax game, that they'll eventually
Yes.
catch up to him.
Yeah.
They'll eventually catch up to him.
So I
Or
would
her.
probably rather say that, that I would advise the builder to get independent tax advice as opposed to saying, here's what it is. Because I'm not a tax expert.
Fair enough, fair enough.
So I would probably rather go and
Fair
say,
And
you
also,
know,
it's not.
Okay, so get him to sign up. There may be an issue here, please,
With
you know,
regard to-
with
to
regard
this
to
property,
HST,
right.
please, you know,
Yeah.
consult with your tax expert on this issue. Okay, that's a very good
Yeah.
idea.
So is that
Something-
what you are? You are a tax expert? You are.
I'm not, well, I'm a financial
Or
planner,
a residential planner.
so I've come, and because of 7 years now of doing, you know, these rebates and seeing these situations come up and knowing what the rules are, the rules are very simple. New construction is subject to HST, but there is a misunderstanding as to what new construction means.
Yeah.
And the meaning in the provincial government is different from the meaning of the federal government, but who controls the taxes?
but it also seems like the federal government is more restrictive because if you say provincially, it's only when it applies, the area applies.
That's what, yes, but Tarion is about warranties. It's not about, and it is also about, it's considered new construction, and there is HST. But Tarion does not
But
get
you
involved.
you can get a house and not be subject to Tarion.
Exactly,
Right.
but still,
But federally,
it's
you can get
considered
a house and still be subject to HST.
exactly, because it's
Right.
considered, federally, it's considered new construction.
Right.
And there is a bit of a conflict there, but federal rules will
Right.
will circumvent,
Right.
I don't like that. Will circumvent provincial rules with respect to taxation,
Right.
okay? And that I want to make very clear to you guys. Next subject you know very well,
Which one's
the
the next
HST,
one?
residential real,
Rental?
the rental property rebate.
We're only on the second one.
Yeah, we're getting there, we're getting pretty quickly.
Okay, these ones are shorter. So the residential rental property rebate, again, if you're buying from a big developer, but you're not buying it as your primary residence, and instead you're buying it as an investment property and plan to rent it out to an individual, that is where you apply for this. It doesn't automatically come into place like it does when it's your primary residence. The builder doesn't assign it into the purchase, assign it to you, or sorry, you don't assign it to the builder and it's not reflected in the purchase price. You actually have to apply once you close. Like we mentioned really briefly at the beginning, there has to be a 1-year lease in place. And the occupant who's leasing it has to be the first person occupying. You can't move in there for a short period of time and then rent it out. It has to be the first occupant. Does anyone have an idea if foreign investors are entitled to this?
I know, because I read your page. They get it too.
Yes.
They can
So
get it.
they
too.
are also entitled to it. So, I mean, there's lots of foreign investors, lots of Chinese
That's great to
investors
know,
buying lots of properties and intending to lease them out and rent them. They are entitled to the rental property rebate of $24,000 because it is a new build and you're paying
I
tax
don't
on
understand
land.
about what are you talking about. If I buy a rental property.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then.
You will have to pay the HST, all the HST up front. So,
Because
okay?
I'm buying. I'm
If you're
the
buying
owner.
it, you're the owner,
And then
and you're
I'm
not the
renting it.
principal resident,
Yeah.
so you must pay the HST up front.
Yeah.
So you won't get that $24,000 credit
Yeah,
like
yeah.
principal resident would.
Yeah.
And then you can apply for your HST new housing rental property rebate.
Or
After
I rent it
closing,
to someone
yes.
who is.
But
So
you
once you
must have-
have, once you have that 1-year lease in place,
I see.
then you're allowed to apply for it. So closing must actually happen.
Yeah.
It can't be during interim occupancy. You can't apply before closing happens.
Okay.
And again, there has to
And
be a
that was for
1-year
homes
lease.
and condos?
Yes,
Yes.
always, all new construction.
Ah,
Homes, homes, yeah, doesn't matter. We gave a talk about a month and a half ago, 5 weeks ago at PSR, young brokerage firm downtown. And at the end of it, a young broker, and he'd been in the business for about 6 or 7 years, 7, 8 years. And he said, you mean I'm eligible for a rebate on the condo that I bought that closed June 8th, 2017. And now we're talking May, I think it was May. I said, yes, you're 1 month away, because that's 2-year limitation period. You're 1 month away of losing that.
24,000.
Well, it wasn't, it was 21,000, it was $21,000. That, and so he's gonna be getting his $21,000. He's pretty happy about that. But he was 1 month away from not getting that.
Okay, so but you are the people that we can go to and you're gonna look after that?
Of course.
Okay.
Well, let's be clear, why am I here? Why are we here?
Yeah,
We're here to educate you, but this is what we do. We help people claim for these rebates.
and how much do you charge?
For a residential rental property rebate, it's in the range of $500–600. That's a flat fee.
Okay.
Bought from a builder, that rarely happens because it's taken care of in the agreement of purchase and sale.
Off
You
from a
assign-
builder as your primary resident.
Yes, no, but it does happen, like in Haley's friend Molly's case, where they bought that individual on a big, on a big subdivision project or a big condominium tower. We don't see those. We will see residential property rental rebates, or we will see assignor issues where the assignee, again, you must pay up front if you're the assignor, not the assignee, the assignor, the eventual purchaser. You must pay the HST up front and then apply for it afterwards. So we help those people. I've never.
My guy, for example, I'm not quite sure yet if he's going to live in it or is going to invest or is it an investment property. So in this case, then, if it was an investment thing, his intention is to rent it, he's going to have to apply for it.
Exactly.
On closing, he'll have to pay the full HST amount and then apply it after the fact to get the credit back.
Okay, perfect.
And then if he decides to assign it, flip it, the person he assigns it to
So
will.
this
Let's say he buys a multi-unit, right? Less than 5 units, which is still not commercial, right?
Right?
And he wants to rent the units, obviously he's not gonna live in all the
Every
units,
single one is eligible.
right? Okay, but he has to pay HST in the total value of that property
Yes.
up front,
Yes, upfront.
and then he pays for each one
Yes.
after.
Exactly.
So just a quick,
After closing?
After, no,
After
once,
1 year.
after closing and once a lease is in place.
The lease in place, 1 year.
Yes. Can't be done before a lease is in place.
so
Often what happens is an interim closing, they have possession already, they will start the lease.
Which is fine.
Someone will move in there, but they don't own the property, legally they don't own the property yet. So they can't, even though they have a renter in there and it's leased, a lessor in there because it's leased, they can't apply until after closing.
And it
That's
must
growing
be-
up, that's growing up all over the place, where people move in after
Right.
occupancy, and I had the situation where somebody did this lease to get the 10 had to be out like 6 hours or something like that, because they rented it out without fully owning it.
Okay.
One question. And so for each unit to apply for it, up to 24,000?
$24,000, yeah.
How do you know what's the margin for that unit?
it's based on the value of the
Well,
property.
If the value of the property is $450,000 or more, it's 24, you're not eligible for the federal portion, but you're eligible for the provincial portion, which is $24,000. They'll be eligible for the maximum on each of those properties, $24,000.
But they say it's a complex, right? Less than 5 units.
It's a what
It's
type?
a small little building,
Okay,
So it's maximum
4 units, let's say.
yep.
So the 24,000 is for the 4 units, or it would be?
Are they
by
buying the
each?
whole property?
Yeah, they buy the whole property. You're an
They're
investor.
subdivided, like a duplex.
Oh,
but with
multiplex.
five-
Like
yeah.
triplex.
And it's a one
And are they-
amount, and it has 4 units in it.
No, I
For
see.
renting, right? Renting.
Yeah, no, I believe each of those units would have to, if it's the same address.
Same address.
See, I came into this situation, yeah, I think he's only eligible for one rebate. He owns the entire
The
property.
whole, yeah.
He doesn't own each of the 4 units. They're all part of the one
Yes,
construction,
Yes,
yeah, just one rebate.
yes.
One unit.
He would have to subdivide, no, then there's ownership, because, yeah, he'd have
Yeah, no,
to, no, just one rebate, just one rebate.
There's so many houses being renovated in the town, because the bungalows are completely redone, 2 stories, so they are HST.
If they're being sold, but here
Yeah,
we're,
they are being sold.
yeah, they are not exempt, they're not exempt.
So there is there is an issue, or there can be an issue, which actually happened to me specifically. My brother, so when you buy from a developer, it's supposed to be embedded in the cost, the tax is embedded in the cost, and you assign the rebate to the developer. It's supposed to be seamless, you're not supposed to have to worry about claiming for the rebate after the fact. But in my situation, my brother bought a condo, was going to live in it with an ex-girlfriend, decided not to live in it, bought another place. So I decided I was going to rent it from him, at least during interim occupancy. And then when it closed, he was going to decide what he wanted to do with it. When he closed, I decided I was going to buy it from him. But the builder didn't actually believe that I was living there as his sister, and as his sister, it's supposed to be,
She should have been credited for the rebate on the agreement of purchase and sale.
but he wasn't. So we had to, even though it was supposed to be automatic, the builder denied it, and we had to, after the fact, apply as the rental property rebate instead of buying the home from a builder. So
It was
there
totally,
are,
it was totally arbitrary by the builder. I'm not so
I'm not-
sure why he decided.
yeah.
Just didn't believe that, you know, that they were, I don't know if you believe you weren't related or you weren't in there, I don't know what it was.
I
But
think
we did apply
originally-
for it and we got it
Yeah, I
back.
think originally it was his name on the ownership, and then we changed it to me, or to his name being the occupant, then we changed it to mine, so we thought something fishy was maybe happening, but there wasn't.
Thank you very
To
much.
go back to that example, the 4 units, if they're registered as individual condos, then you can apply for the rebate for each
Yeah,
unit.
but if they're individual condos,
If
you
the property is registered as a 4-unit condo,
okay, and he buys each one, so he would have to buy each one individually.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he was buying the whole complex.
And then dividing it.
And
yeah,
and then renting each of the
original-
units within the
If in
complex.
the original transaction, that property was sold as one complex
Right.
containing 4 condo units.
But then you'd have to have a condo board and you'd have, to, you know, it's not like, he doesn't own, an individual can't own the condo, he can own the individual units inside the condo.
Right.
It sounds as if this fellow was buying the whole building, which had 4 rental units in it,
Right.
right? So in that case, you can't, I mean, you know, condo rules are different than rental
Of course,
rules.
yeah.
So this was one individual
Right.
purchase, right?
Okay.
The last topic, which actually is the
Our
one we
favorite
deal
topic.
with the most, but it doesn't need as thorough of an explanation because it is more straightforward, is owner-built homes. So if you decide to either move into a home that's brand new, if you decide to buy a property, knock it down, and build a new home, you're considered an owner who
So
has
it's
a
an
new
owner-built home.
who has an owner-built home. Or if you decide to buy a property that needs to be gutted and substantially renovated, you also are considered an owner who builds a new home.
So let's simplify this. Who owns a single-family home here? If you decide to knock it down and build new, you are eligible for the HST new housing rebate for owner-built homes. The maximum for that one, because there was an existing property on it, is $16,080. Take your existing house, and again, it doesn't have to, can keep the foundation.
Right, you don't have to buy, I said purchase,
But
but you
if
could
you
already.
decide to build a completely new home, so you knock down your existing home, that's your principal residence, and build a new home, you are eligible for the HST new housing rebate for owner-built homes, and the maximum there is $16,080.
On sale.
No,
So,
You just
no,
did
if
it.
you keep it, so you're gonna live there.
Yeah, you did.
It's
One is it, one.
So there are
can
two-
you start
yeah,
the talk?
there are
upon
two-
completion.
there are the two avenues. One, you already own your existing home, you decide, I no longer like this house, I'm gonna knock it down and build a new one.
I'm doing the visual here for you. I don't like that. I'm gonna build this one,
Yeah.
okay, right? And so you knock this one down, you've lived in it for 5 or 6 or 10 years, and you said, well, my family's grown, or whatever reason, I wanna build a new one. You build a new one, you're gonna get back $16,080.
But on
That-
what? You haven't sold it yet. On the,
It's not on the selling
It's
it.
yours.
It's yours. It's new construction. So you're gonna get back, they're giving you back some of the provincial sales tax, because,
on my building material?
yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
everything related to construction, and on that sheet, it's the last, I think it's the last page.
No.
It tells you what's eligible. Everything related to construction is eligible. Here's why. On July 1st, 2010, PST was now become an additional cost. So all costs related to construction went up. Your architect went up, your engineer went up, your surveyor went up, you know, all your materials went up. So they're giving you back some of the PST embedded in the HST back. In the case of an existing house, that's the maximum you're going to get, $16,080, and that's contingent on having invoices of this much or more, 302,840. Okay, it's an unusual number. Don't have to get into
It
that.
could be 302, or it could be 10 million,
Yeah.
and
You
the
get
max is
16,080.
16.
However, if it's 200,000 because for whatever reason, you
It's a
paid a
small
lot in
house.
cash, you don't, it's a smaller house, you didn't keep a lot of your invoices, you lost them, or as I say, usually it's cash issue, you've given your trades cash, you can still claim for it, but you will get a proportionately lower amount. A ballpark figure is about 5.3%. On 200,000, you get back $10,600. Okay? Now let's say you do something else. Let's say
So that was one.
that's
The
one.
other one is,
And again, don't forget that.
so then again, you could decide you want to purchase a new home. It's an old house, you can't salvage anything, there was a fire, there was a flood, it's just unrepairable, and you decide to knock it down and build a new house. Same exact thing, but you just don't own it. You're still only getting the rebate back on the building costs. Nothing to do with the purchase price or anything, because it's a residential selling to another residential, or a primary.
There's no sale.
Yeah, no, I'm talking, if there was a sale.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, instead of, that's one circumstance, so if you decide to knock down your existing home and build a new home. The other circumstance with the exact same requirements is if you buy an old house.
Let's not worry about buying the house. Let's say you're just in the house.
Yeah.
You're just in the house.
Yeah.
You know, you're just in the
Same
house.
thing.
Yeah, it's the same
Yeah.
thing. Anyway, it's just sort of adding an extra element.
But how much time do you have? Like, what is
2 years from move-in date, from substantial completion. So it's not when you start. So someone who did one of these projects, they built a new home for themselves, and they moved in July of 2017, are just about to lose the ability to claim the rebate. Okay? But it's not just new construction. So let's say you had this house, and it was a beautiful house. It had the windows, it had the doors, it had all the, and you decide, okay, I'm going to gut it. I'm going to take all the drywall off and you take it bare to the studs inside, and then do the same thing. All 4 walls can remain standing. It's considered substantial renovation. It's considered new, and you'll get back that $16,080. Okay? Okay. If you buy land, pay HST on the land and build a new home. So not in Toronto, there are no undeveloped, empty lots. But you go up to Woodbridge, you go up to Aurora, Newmarket, etc. Buy raw land and pay HST on that land, and you build a new home. You will get back 24,000.
Or if there's subdivision of 2 or more than 2.
Wow.
You have a question?
Yeah, you said that the federal and the provincial rules definition of new is different. Provincial is tear down, like brand new. Federal is whatever is substantial. If it qualifies as a new home federally, but not provincially, you're not liable for the provincial sales tax rate.
There's no sense in this provincial sales tax.
Or
It's
PST.
HST.
I guess it's both, right? But do you pay
It's
that to the
HST.
federal government?
Yeah, so
then?
you're paying, no,
You're
just
paying HST, everything is HST, but I'm just trying to tell you where the sources
Oh,
of
so
the
it's split
rebate
up
are
into
coming
more.
from. It's not split anymore, you're always
Yeah.
paying HST. Okay? HST is HST.
So this is the situation where we
This is the guts of
deal
our
with the
business.
yeah.
Dealing with people who are knocking down their homes, building new homes, because it's a labor-intense process. I had a guy this morning give me a stack of invoices this thick with all his Home Depot invoices, and they all got to be cataloged. Who the vendor was, what their HST number is, what was the date, what was the invoice for, was it labor material, how much did they pay, what's the HST, what was it for, was it electrical, was it plumbing fixtures, was it roofing, was it framing, etc.
But if you only spend $50, say you were doing a renovation, you spend $75,000, are you still eligible for some HST?
Again, the definition of new must be met. I did one for a guy who built a beautiful 2,800 square foot house. He only gave me $150,000 of invoices.
Yeah.
It was new construction, it was
Yeah.
brand new. The application went out and he got his $7,500 back approximately. They never asked where are the rest of the invoices.
No kidding, because that's a red flag.
Well, no, they won't ask, they won't ask.
Sometimes if
But
they're,
what are you gonna say? I'll say I lost them,
Yeah.
I didn't know I had to keep
And they're
them,
really cheap.
or I paid this guy cash. It's not illegal, it's not illegal to pay cash. As long as the sources of that cash are legal. If you use your line of credit.
Yeah.
I had a guy who built it on Dunvegan, right in the heart of Forest Hill. Spent $3.5 million on his home. He gave me invoices for $400,000. I said, okay, I'll submit it. Never asked a question because it was HST new housing rebate for owner-built home. If it's a renovation, they will scrutinize it a little more closely because they will want to know that the scope of the renovation was extensive enough to meet their definition of new. Exactly.
so that kind of goes back to your question. If the invoices are just showing things like bathrooms and.
No, well, but if it's new, if it's brand new and you only have
If it's not,
$75,000,
if it's not brand
you'll be
new.
okay, you'll get a little rebate
If
back.
it's a renovation and you only have invoices of
Yeah, if you
75,000.
just do one bathroom in your house.
It's not eligible. It's
A
not eligible. It has
basement,
to
a lot of
be
people,
extensive.
a lot of people call us saying when they spend 150,000 on their basement, can I apply? Unfortunately, it wasn't.
It's just a basement.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get the last example. Retired couple in their early to mid-70s, living in a big home at Bayview and York Mills. Said, you know what, kids are out of the house a long time, this house is too big for us, sell it, move into a condo, gut the condo. Eligible for the rebate or not eligible for the rebate? Eligible. It's considered, they do a substantial enough renovation on that condo, they can get, and we've done it for plenty of people, they can get, and it happens all over the city, some beautiful older buildings in the city, large condominium units, 1,500, 1,800 square feet, 2,100 square feet, and some beautiful, avenue off of Avenue Road, off of Yonge Street, York Mills, downtown, even some of the older condos downtown. There's renovations going on in those condos all the time. These people are sitting not knowing that they can claim for the HST new housing rebate. So if you know people like that, you can give them a big gift.
Hero.
You'll be a hero.
The requirements are actually easier for condos too because of the common elements that you're not allowed to touch, right? So you can't touch the windows, you can't touch certain walls or load-bearing walls, you can't knock
So
them
to
down.
prove that it's actually a new build,
The 90%
substantially
is
new
easier.
build is easier.
For a
Because-
condo, because the restrictions in a condo in terms of what you can
You
touch.
can't
don't
change
have
the
to do
window.
And most of the walls, the exterior walls are concrete.
Right,
They don't even have drywall on them, they're concrete walls.
right.
You can't touch, the windows, you can't touch the sliding doors, you can't touch the exterior door, you can't touch internally. So normally what happens is in the condo units, they knock down, they create more open concept because, the older ones are traditional in terms of spacing, etc. So they'll open up the kitchen and the living room, take down those walls, they'll take down the ceilings, they'll gut the bedrooms, etc., new flooring.
That's all that's needed.
Lighting fixtures, plumbing fixtures, countertops, closets, those things, and that'll qualify.
I love your business.
Okay.
So that's happened when you claim the new construction rebate because of the expenses that you have when you renovating your
The condominium.
own place. And if you sell it,
Selling
the new
it,
person who comes in, because you already live there,
if you've already lived there, then you've
you
received
cannot
the,
claim anything.
no,
the new
no.
The new owner.
Again, it's intent. If your intent was to renovate it and then flip
Sell
it,
it.
I've never seen that happen because, you've lived in it for 10 years, you want to upgrade it, and then you'll probably live in it for a little while longer, and then you sell it. The buyer of that cannot claim for the rebate. You will have claimed for it, you will have received it, and then it's not considered new construction on the resale. As a
Thank
principal
you
resident.
very much.
You're very welcome.